Shalom everyone, Shavua Tov. We are starting this week the book of BaMidbar, the book of Numbers. And as the name of it in English says, it's a book of numbers, which means it's dealing with numbers. It counts the number of the Kohanim, the number of the Leviim, the number of the Israelites, the number of every tribe, and then it counts them again and again and again, the whole book. What do you need to count them for? Is that because God wants to know how many people there are? Because it says that God is telling Moses to count them. But however, we know, according to the Maimonides at least, it says that God is Hayodea, Hayadua, Ve'amada. He's the knower, the knowing, and the knowledge. So there's no piece of knowledge that is not part of the Creator. So how can you say that God needs us to be counted? Very, very weird. Okay? If you look at it on the superficial level. However, if we read the story itself, and there's no story, it's just the counting, it counts all the men from 20 to 60. Okay? And they give the numbers of the tribes, each tribe, and so on and so forth. So we have an enigma. Why does God need to know the numbers? If He's God, He's supposed to know the numbers. He's supposed to know the numbers even before the creation, because that was also part of creation. Okay? So for that we need to get the answer from the Zohar. And the Zohar in Parasha of BaMidbar in the beginning already starts, and it says as follows. Rabbi Abba patach, Rabbi Abba opened, and he said, Vayivra Elokim et Adam betzalmo. He starts with the verse from Genesis chapter 1. And God created Adam in His image. Okay, and then he says, B'sha'ah she'akadosh baruch hu bara et Adam. When the Creator created Adam, עשה אותו בצורת העליונים והתחתונים. He made him in the structure of the upper worlds and the lower worlds. והיה כלול מכולם, and Adam was included of all of the different levels of creation. והיה אורו מאיר מסוף העולם עד סוף העולם, and his light was shining from the end of the world to the end of the world. By the way, where is the end of the world? I don't think there is a boundary which is called a place that is called the end of the world. You have a sign like this that says the end of the world? No, I don't think there's a place like this. But this is the same thing as there's another midrash, a legend, that says that Adam was so tall up to the heavens. Right? So if you think somebody that his light was shining from the end of the world to the end of the world, he was tall out up to the heavens, and so on and so forth. And then, maybe, just a second, where did he live? He lived in the Garden of Eden, right? And what was in the Garden of Eden? The garden, you have plants. What kind of plants grew in the Garden of Eden? The tree of knowledge and the tree of life. And I don't know what about you, but I looked in many nurseries and I could not find any trees like this for sale. You know, tree of life and tree of knowledge. I don't know any trees like this for sale. You know, you should try somewhere when you think, but we know that the tree of life and tree of knowledge, these are very abstract ideas, concepts. And that means that if the tree of knowledge and tree of life, these are abstract concepts, what about Adam, that is tall up to the heaven and is shining from the end of the world to the end of the world? Maybe this is also an abstract concept, right? That's what Kabbalah is teaching us. That, yes, there is a story, but there are hints, legends that tell us there's something much deeper than that. Let's go on and it will give us some answers. And although we already learned this kind of verse, because every verse in the Torah has many understandings and commentaries. But it says, then it continues, I'll just skip to verse 4 in the Zohar. And it says, והיה מסתכל בחוכמה למעלה ולמטה. And Adam was able to see wisdom above and below, which means he knew all the wisdom of the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Okay? כיוון שחטא, since he sinned, נטמעתו הפרצופים. We know what happened, that since Adam sinned, the sin of Adam created a different new world. Why? Because as long as Adam was part of what we call the Garden of Eden, which is a place that has no limitation. And how do we know there's no limitation? Because we know from the story there was no death. And death crawled or jumped upon Adam only after the sin. There was no death. There's no angel of death. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the moment Adam created the sin, and we have no idea what the sin is about. By the way, he did not eat an apple. There's no place in the Torah, or in the commentaries, or the Mishnah, or the Talmud, and any other midrashim that says the word apple. By the way, when the Torah was written, apples were not introduced to the land of Israel yet. So they didn't know even what apples are. So the whole thing about the apple, that's nothing that we know about. Somebody brought it later on. Okay, now let's go back. The moment Adam sinned, it says nitma'atu hapartzufim, which means all the structures of the universes has been blemished. והחוכמה נסתלקה ממנו, and the wisdom went away from Adam. ולא היה מסתכל אלא בדברי הגוף שלו. And he could not see only through his own body. We can study a few days just about this verse. But first of all, we have to understand. If we are talking about Adam as such a unique entity that is able to be everywhere, to see everything, to have all the wisdom, who was he? Was that a guy named Adam? Okay, married to Eve? Or are we talking about, as we said, if the tree of knowledge is abstract concept, and the tree of life is abstract, according to that, Adam and the Garden of Eden are also abstract. So what are they? And of course, the Kabbalists are saying, when we are talking about Adam, before the sin, it's all of us. It's all the souls of humanity. Each one of us was part of that entity which is called Adam. The problem is that in the Garden of Eden, everyone, all of us, we were one whole. And since we were one whole, we will also be able to be one with the creation. And that's why it says that Adam was also one with the wisdom. All the wisdom was part of Adam because everything was one. The moment the sin happened, and what was the sin about? The sin was very simple. We can have the hint coming from the story of the sin that it says that the moment that Eve, which the Zohar explains, she was not another entity, she was just one side of Adam. Because Adam had two sides, male and female. And it says in the Torah, male and female, he created them. Adam contained both sides. By the way, the word in Hebrew, tsela, that Eve was a tsela of Adam, tsela means in Hebrew a side, not a rib. That's a mistranslation of somebody who doesn't know well Hebrew. You can translate it as a rib, but that's not what it says, because the moment we learn that Adam and Eve were two sides of the same entity, That's a side and not a rib. And especially if Adam was not a physical being, of course, that was not a physical rib that was taken away from him. That's Jewish tradition. Where the apple are coming from and the rib is coming from, that's not from our tradition. That was something that somebody has introduced later on. However, although a lot of Jews believe that that's totally Judaism. No, it's not. Okay. So, we understand that Adam and Eve were the whole of humanity, female and male, as one. In the Garden of Eden, seeing from the end of the world to the end of the world, and their light was endless. But then came the sin. And the sin was basically an opportunity. We know if you want to understand what free will is about, it's also about the ability to make a mistake. Living a life that are totally complete without any possibility of a mistake, that's not a life of free will. And we learn in many other classes that because Adam was created his image, God's image, he also had the image of God within him, which means Adam, us, humanity, we needed free will. We needed to choose between light and darkness. We needed to choose the ability to create our own reality. And we did. And when we ate from the tree of knowledge, the main world that everything goes around it is Vatar ki tovu lema'achal v'chi ta'avahu la'inayim. When it says about Eve, I'll just give you the exact quote. Genesis chapter, that's already chapter 2. And it says, the moment Eve was eating, okay. That's in Genesis chapter, that's chapter 2, supposed to be. No, that's 3. And verse 6, Vatar ha'isha ki tov ha'etz lema'achal, and the woman saw that the tree is good for eating, v'chi ta'avahu la'inayim, and it's lust for the eyes. V'nechmad ha'etz laskil, v'tikach mipiro. And to make it short, the moment you define something as lust, what is lust? We go back to our teacher, Rabbi Yashlag, who wrote the commentary on the Sulam on the Zohar, and he explains it in a very simple way, just to take all Kabbalistic tradition from thousands of years together. The Creator is endless. His light is endless. His sharing is endless. His bliss is endless. So the question of mankind in thousands of years of philosophy, how can we, humans, that we are finite, connect to another being? So many philosophers reach to a place which is totally logic, that since we are finite and we are full of limitation of the body and selfishness and all of this stuff, we are doomed to suffer forever. That's logical philosophy. But we know that life is not about logic, because what is logical is not real. Right? How many times science is teaching us something that's logical of science, everybody understands that that's the way it is. For instance, science once was sure that the earth is flat. That was science. You know what? It was wrong. Right? The world was round. Then there were all kinds of stuff in medicine, in every part of science. Scientists are people, and they're opinionated. And the moment they have a truth, they want to sell it. They have an agenda. And then, there's an expiration date. Newton had an idea about the rules of physics. Came Einstein and said, yes, however, there's another level. You know what? It didn't take long, and 20 years later came Niels Bohr, and he came with the quantum physics, and he said about Einstein's rules, yes, however. So, and then a few decades later on, mid-80s, came out the scientists and said, oh, yes, quantum physics is right, however, there's another level, strings theory, stuff like this. And then there's a singularity, there's so many new discoveries that always, the moment you have a discovery, a truth, in physics or any way in science or medicine, it has an expiration date. The problem is that you can't see the date till the date reveals itself to you. That's what the Zohar says. After the sin, Adam has been confined only to his body. He could not see anymore, more than a body. Why were we punished to be able to be only limited to the body alone? And the answer is lust. As long as we were part of the Garden of Eden, we were part of what Rabbi Ashla calls the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. The moment we receive, but it's not for ourselves, we receive because we really care to help somebody else, we create the magic that is called circuitry. And a circle is infinite. It has no beginning, no end. If we want to say that a desire in Hebrew is a vessel, it is a finite thing. But the moment you turn your desire, as we know Kabbalistically, into the desire to receive for the sake of sharing, then you turn the vessel into a pipe, tzinor. Same letters as ratzon. Desire, shift it around. Same thing. Take your desire, shift it around, use it. Don't blemish it. Use it. But use it to receive in order to make others happy too, including yourself. And what do you get? A pipe is endless by its being. That's illogical. Why it's illogical? Because the human logic is about me, me, me. Because that's called evil inclination. And it says in the Torah in the beginning, Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra mineurav. The inclination of a human being is selfish from youth. But did it say that you were doomed for that? No. The whole Torah is about teaching us how to overcome that selfishness, how to become altruistic. Love others as you love yourself. Why? I'm God. Oh, because I said so. No, God is not this kind of a parent. You want to be with me? You need to be endless. You want to be endless? Think about others. Not just about you. Also about others. You have to love yourself and others the same breath. Is that possible? Logically? No. But can people create stuff that is beyond logic? Yeah. They call it thinking out of the box. And that means altruism. That means being there for others. That's why Rav Ashlag says, you really want to free yourself instead of being busy. What can I get? What can I get? What can I get? That's called ta'ava, lust. The moment you want to receive for yourself alone, you create a limitation. Why? You are the beginning and the end. That's where it starts, that's where it ends. That moment you're confined within the few pounds of your body. That's your universe. Very miserable. So small and tiny. So lonely. You want to be in a different plane, you have to realize there are people around you and they need you. In that moment that you apply yourself to be of service. Why? Because that's how you fix the primordial sin. This is the correction of the sin. The sin started from lust, which means I want for myself and the heck with the rest. That is selfishness, desire to receive for the self alone. This is death, because that means cutting yourself off from the universe. And that's what happened to Adam. He found himself into his body. Not one body, not two bodies, not even 5 bodies, not even a dozen, billions of them. That's Adam. Pieces of Adam, running around, going shopping, buying, hurting each other, helping each other, serving each other, abusing each other. That's us, humanity. We are all Adam. And our job is to learn that we are all one. And to be learned that we are all one, we have to overcome the body. The body is the result of the sin. So if before the sin we saw everything endlessly, we were wise endlessly, and we saw each other as one, after the sin we were confined into the illusion in which you have no idea what's right and what's wrong. You think you're doing the right business, 5 minutes later, 5 years later, maybe 5 months later, or 50 years later. What a mistake, what a fool, how come I didn't see all the facts? We are blind. How much light do we see? Do we see, are there electromagnetic waves like radio waves? No, we don't see them. Is the wall solid? It looks like. Can radio waves go through the wall? Yes. So is it solid? I'm not so sure now. Adam, when we have been Adam, we could see all of that, because we were there in a place of desire to receive for the sake of sharing. Now, after that collapse, Cain and Abel didn't work. Cain killed Abel. He didn't go on. So Adam had to wait 130 years, says the Torah, and then Seth came in, and humanity started to flourish. Flourish? I don't know. Flourish? If making each other miserable, that's called flourishing, right? Because that's a lot what people do to each other, making each other miserable. You know, if you're not supposed to make other people miserable, you find a way anyway, right? Not always, but you can help it, right? In Kolze, so the world, this physical world, was kind of incomplete, says the Zohar. Lo nimtza b'kiyumo, it was kind of shaky, was not really sure he's standing there, Ad sheba Avram, till Abraham came to the world. Why was it important that Abraham came to the world? He was the first human being who got it. And you know, so what if you got it? Yeah. There's a Jewish legend that says that the world needs to have at least 36 righteous men so the world doesn't fall apart. Why do you need 36 righteous men? So we need, some 100 years ago, a little bit less, quantum physics. In that time, there was also the uncertainty principle. And what did the uncertainty principle say? The way you look at stuff, the way you measure it, that's the way it becomes. Which means, if everybody looks at the world from a selfish point of view, the world will fall apart. Because that's what stuff about modern science, it's so close to Kabbalah. You cannot really understand it without Kabbalah. When you look at the world in a positive way, you make it be positive. When you look at the world in a negative way, you make it negative. So, if every human being will look at the world in a negative way, the world will fall apart. It was just a miracle that the world survived till Abraham. Abraham, there was the first one who could see. Just to remind everyone, what was Abraham responsible for? Monotheism. Not that there is one God sitting up in heaven. Hey God, can you hear me? No. He was the first one to realize that the whole world is one and everything is connected. Which means if you really want to be one with God, you have to be one with his creatures, with his creation. That's why Abraham was the man of chesed, of loving kindness. Why? Was everybody around Abraham worth loving? No. Was he loving them anyway? Yes. Why? He found that, the same way, sometimes you have a pain in your finger. Would you take a sword and cut it off just because you have a pain? Well, no. Why? Because it's your finger. It's part of you. Same way with all of humanity. We all different limbs of the same entity. We all need each other. If a limb of mine is aching, I'm trying to do everything in my best to heal it, not to cut it off. It takes a long time to realize that. But thinking about cutting it off, that's sick. Like cutting your finger off because it's aching. Same thing about others. Seeing like Abraham is seeing a whole, seeing that we are all part of the same entity and we need each other. But Abraham was not enough. It was not strong enough. He just held the world, said the Zohar, so the world doesn't fall apart. It's like the Zohar says, it's like somebody was falling and somebody came and held it in the right arm. So it's not falling, but it's a limping. Came Isaac. And Isaac came, says the Zohar, held the world on the left side. Abraham came from the side of chesed, loving kindness. Love everyone, hug everyone, feed everyone. That will revive the world. Isaac said, yeah, but you have to think about yourself too. And he said also, you also have to put the limits. You can't just feed everyone and give them everything. You can suffocate them. Okay? So you should, before you feed somebody, you have to check. Maybe he has allergies. Right? I think you got a message. Comes Isaac. Still between the right and the left, the sharing and the receiving, you need Jacob to balance the three of them into one wholesome, and that was Jacob. Still with all of that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the world was not balanced yet. Till Jacob brought to the world 12 tribes. And they became 70 people that came down to Egypt. But the world was still not balanced, says the Zohar. When was the world getting balanced? After Mount Sinai revelation, after the Exodus, and after the tabernacle had been established, and there were 12 tribes camping, 3 to the east, 3 to the west, 3 to the south, 3 to the north, and the tabernacle in the middle. Then says the Zohar, Az nitkaimu ha'olamot v'nishlamu. Then the whole world, not just the physical world, all the spiritual world, everything was healed, and everything was a whole again. And then the perfume, but it's a word, nitbasmu. It's like when the tree is blossoming and everything is relaxed. There's aromatherapy. When people are upset, give them something to smell, then it's relaxed. That's the meaning. The world was finally כיוון שהוקמו התורה והמשכן, since that was established, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא, says the Zohar, the Creator wanted לספור חילות התורה. He wanted to count the armies of the Torah. כמה צבאות הם בתורה? How many armies are there? Didn't we say that Creator is Almighty? He should know that. He needs Moses and Aaron to count for him. People make mistakes. If you count 600,000 people, you count 3 times every time you get another different number. I assure you. Because people make mistakes. Once, one person went aside, he went to the bathroom, Why do you need people to count if you're God? Boy, there's a secret in there. בורא, כל דבר שצריך להתיישב במקומו, דהיינו לקשר ענף שלמטה בשורשו למעלה, אינו מתיישב עד שנזכר בפה ונתמנה עליו. We said that a few times, I'll remind it again. In this physical world, When you create any structure, and that's what the Torah is about, creating structures that are supposed to communicate with the upper world. And by moving things down below, you move stuff up above, and that in turn, it affects you down below. Which means, when Abraham said the whole world is one, it was in a way a potential state. It was a theory. When it was now, with 12 tribes in the tabernacle, it was not a theory anymore. It was a science. It was a practical science. What does it mean? When all the 12 tribes and every person was there, it's not that they were counted. They have been assigned, appointed to what? The word that the Torah is using, if you read the story itself in BaMidbar, in the first parasha, it does say to count them. The second verse says, Seu et rosh kol adat bnei Israel. Raise the head of all the congregation of Israel. What's the connection between raising the head and counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. No, you don't do that. You say it in English. When a person feels that he is not important, he feels he doesn't count, right? Nobody brings me into account. Then he's lonely, because people need to feel that they have a destination. They feel that they need a job, an assignment. Without an assignment, a person is like a flat tire. Goes nowhere. Why do I need to be standing there like this if I'm going nowhere? Right? So you look like a flat tire. But the moment, very important people say, we need you. We need you because we have no replacement for you. And everything, if you don't come and join us, we can do the job. What happens to you? From a flat tire, you just get yourself into position. That's called Seu et Rosh. Every person needs to be raised, not by counting him, by bringing him into account, by assigning the person to what? When did death come into this world? The sin of Adam. The sin of Adam created separation because it created selfishness. What separates between people? Selfishness. The moment a person can overcome selfishness, which is cowardice, which is full of emptiness, which is all coming from wrong consciousness, from pain. But the moment a person becomes spiritual, he overcomes that, and he realizes that he needs to share more than the other person needs to receive. Because by sharing, love others as thyself, I am God. That's the way to connect to God. What can we do? God is endless. The only way you can connect to endless is becoming endless yourself. And that's not by stop receiving. Many religions say, if you want to be spiritual, you have to detach yourself from any desires. Either financial, sexual, food, whatever. Abraham didn't have sex? Of course he had. He didn't have money? Of course he had. So how come Abraham is the chosen one? How come Isaac and Jacob? All of them, they had all of this stuff. And they are role models. Because it's not avoiding the desire to receive that makes you spiritual. It's by overriding the desire to receive and using it. Not as a ratzon, not as a vessel, but as a pipe, as a tzinor. That's what they did. The moment they used whatever they had for other people's benefit, they connected to God. So the more, the merrier. The bigger the desire, the bigger the light it can receive. This is the true secret of the universe. So it's not that you have to suppress your desires. You have simply to divert them in order to receive not just for yourself. And that means being at service. But if you don't think that you are important, if you don't think that you have a job, if you don't think that your job counts, you cannot be of service to anyone. You know, I heard about those very spiritual people, you know, that's what they say in India, about this guy that for 400 years he sits under a tree and he never ate. But what did he do except from being there, becoming a tree by himself? Did he give any benefit to anyone? Nothing. So, what kind of spirituality is that? You got nothing and you gave nothing, so you're nothing. You're simply nothing. You are something only when you help others because you're part of something bigger. Because you have a role. What is the role? That's where it comes. Everything that has to be fit in its place. It has to be appointed. Why do humans have ceremonies to appoint people for their job? Because that's what the Zohar says. It's called abracadabra. Abracadabra, we learn, is Hebrew. Abra means I create. Kadabra means as I speak. The moment you tell somebody, you know, in the name of the law, the government, the city, whatever, I appoint you to become this and this and this, at that moment the person's like, he's not a flat tire anymore. He has an assignment. He is part of a bigger picture. He knows that without him, everything falls apart. That's what we are talking about. So it's not that God needed us to be counted because he needed to know how many are we. No, every person had to be appointed to his position. What position? אף כאן רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לספור החיילות של התורה. He wanted to count, but remember again, Hebrew is not English. The word lispo in Hebrew is to count, but it's also coming from the shoresh, the source, samech peiresh. Samech peiresh is, you know the word sapphire? That's Hebrew word. It's a shining stone. Every person has to be appointed for his illumination. And you know, the white color, there's no white color. There's no color white. There's only an assembly of all the different wavelengths. When you put them together, it becomes white. Society or community, they become a society and a community when every individual shines his own frequency. When every person does his job. You know, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, 18th century, in Ukraine, Eastern Europe, he brought Kabbalah to the masses. So even people who never learned how to read could live it in their everyday life. And he was asked, how do we know that the Messiah has come? And he said, you know, how do we know? When everybody is going to do his job, that's when Messiah is coming. You know what? If you live in Israel, that's part of everyday language. It's like everybody's waiting for the Messiah. You go to the city hall and you ask for a permit. Everybody runs and finally you have the permit. Because everybody made their job, made the effort out of the box in order to make it happen. Then you go to a ministry to get another permit. Everybody, you come home and you say, wow, the Messiah has come. Because that's the definition of a Messiah. When everybody does their job and serve everybody else, and they really want, and you know what the sages are saying in Ethics of the Father, Yagata umatzata ta'amin. You make the effort, you'll find the solution. And you know very well, a professional who really cares for you, he will find a solution, although in the beginning he has no idea how he's going to do it. Because he cares for you, God is going to give him the solution. Why? Because that professional, because he really cared, he became a pipe, a tzidor. And when you're Tzino, there's no limitation, because the moment you want just for yourself alone, you're disassociating yourself from God. So you're disassociating yourself from wisdom. You're disassociating yourself from energy, from power, from health, from healing, from everything that is good, from happiness. But the moment you care for others, and you really care for others, then you're connecting yourself with the creation. The creation has all the answers. So every person, when he's appointed and he knows that if he's not going to do the job, nobody else is going to do the job. In every machine, even the smallest screw, if that screw comes out, the whole machine can fall apart. So every screw does his job. Then together, when the job is being done, it's not who did the job, all the parts all together. That's what society is about. This is the consciousness that the book of Numbers is about. It's about the ability to overcome that innate nature of selfishness and limitation that we're born with. I can't, I'm not able, I will never be able to do it, it's not logical, how can I overcome the challenges? Of course you can't. As long as you are the way you're born, no way, you can't. But the moment you learn the secret, and that's what Mount Sinai Revelation is about. Why there are two tablets? God couldn't use a smaller font and give only one tablet? Huh? Of course he could, he's God. But it is in the month of Gemini. It's always the month of Gemini. And Gemini, what's the symbol of Gemini? Two who are one. You and the other person. How do you learn to become godly? Through the other person. And the other person, there are all kinds of other person. There's the other person in the morning, at home, there's the other person on the road to work, there's the other person that you walk with, there's the other person you serve, there's a lot of other person. The other person is our opportunity to become godly and to fix the sin of Adam. And this is when humans start to realize that, and that's what happened on Mount Sinai, then we can redeem ourselves from death, because the sages are saying, "Reshaim bechayehem nikraim metim." Selfish people, they are dead while they're still alive. Why are they dead? They're disconnected from God, and God is life. So, God gave you, when you were born, He filled up your battery. The fact that you are discharging, you're not dead yet, but you're dying. So you're dying. Some people, Benjamin Franklin said, a lot of people die when they're 25, but the burial is only 75 years old. Meanwhile, 50 years of slow, aching death. Selfishness is death. Spirituality is not about taking nothing. It's about taking and receiving. This is the secret of Mount Sinai. This is the secret of the book of Numbers, and this is the secret that if you really want to become spiritual, you have to find what is God appointing you to do in your society, in your community. Take your job. Step up for the position. Do your assignment. Then you can overcome everything. And we'll finish with how do we know that? Because in chapter 3, verse 1, verse 2, it says, that's in chapter 2, verse 2. It says, Ish al diglo be'otot leveit avotam. The tribes, they were camping, a person on his flag, be'otot. Now what is be'otot? Otot in English is signs. This word appears only another one time, I think, in the Torah. Genesis chapter 1, the 4th day. And what does it say? On the 4th day, the 4th day, which is verse 14, chapter 1, in Genesis. Vayomer Elohim, and God said, יהי מאורות ברכי השמיים. Let there be lights in the heavens. להבדיל בין היום ובין הלילה, to separate between day and night. והיו לאותות, and there will be for signs. What is signs? Zodiac signs. How many are there? 12. How many tribes? 12. 3 to the south, water signs. 3 to the north, fire signs. 3 to the east, air signs. 3 to the west, earth signs. All together, when they come as one, they become number 13. And number 13 is one above nature. 13 in Hebrew is one. The Hebrew word for echad is a number. Aleph of echad is 1. Chet of echad is 8. And Dalet of 1, echad, is 4. 1 plus 8 plus 4 is 13. Love others as you love yourself. Ahava, love. Aleph is 1. He is 5. Bet is 5. He is 5. Together, 13. Love equals 1. When the 12 tribes, when all of us become one, we go above the zodiac signs. And that's how the Zohar says, even if there is a decree that the person will die, and there is a decree that he cannot change this decree, he can change this decree and live by learning the rules of the Torah. What are the rules of the Torah of standing 1 foot? Love others as you love yourself. Which means the moment you get out of your body consciousness, out of the limitation that we were confined in due to the sin of Adam, how do you get out of it? By loving others as we love ourselves. That's how we free ourselves from the confinement. And that moment we connect to that level that is called number 13. Freedom, oneness, and life. And then, even if the death was decreed upon the person, he's not there anymore. He's above it. And then he can change the rules and the rules of life to other rules. That's the power of this parasha. That's the power, the secret of this time of the year. To learn, to change destiny, to go above what's written in the stars. It's written. But we can go above it with love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now it's time to exercise unconditional love, not for the sake of others, but it's really for our sake and humanity's sake. Thank you.